I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box, and you cannot compare them at all. So don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, yeah. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, woo. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast. It is Tuesday. Week 5 is in the books. There are no more unbeaten teams. There's only one winless team, and there's more injuries than you can shake a stick at. So, Dennis, sounds like we are in mid-season form already.
We have rounded into shape nicely. Bye weeks have started. Chaos has ensued.
We're halfway through our international slate. Well, we'll dive in. We'll start the recap with last Thursday's game, which was underway when we were on the air. 49ers took a huge 14-0 lead. This ended up actually being a better game, went to overtime. We will get to its ending, but I want to start with the 49ers. They won 26-23 to move to 4-1. Mac Jones now 3-0 in his starts, filling in for Brock Purdy. He has 905 yards, 6 touchdowns, only 1 interception in those starts, completing almost 67% of his passes. There's been some buzz about whether he would be the better option at quarterback. He has continuously said he is the backup. It does sound like if Purdy's able to go, they are going back to him on Sunday, but should they?
Probably, Brock is the starter, and if you believe the, sports mantra, you don't lose your starting spot because of injury, it makes it pretty easy to go back to Brock. Now, I will say Mac is sitting at QB 11 and Purdy is QB 13. So they're like back-to-back practically. Mac averaged 19.4 points per game in his starts. Brock averaged 19.2. So there's not a whole lot of difference. One of the big things over the course of their career, Mac has started 52 games. Per game, he averages 20 for 30 for 209 yards. He's got a 60 to 45 TD to interception ratio with an 86 passer rating. Brock has started 38 games in his career. He averages about 18 to 27, but for 240 yards with almost a 67.5 TD to interception ratio and completion percentage, and a 68 to 31 TD to interception ratio with a 103.7 passer rating. I think some of that we can chalk up to Mac's situations he's played in, a la the end of the Bill Belichick train wreck in New England, a not great situation last year in Jacksonville, though he played pretty well. But I do think Mac is doing what he needs to do. He's towing the company line. He knows he's got another year there because he signed a 2-year deal. Actually, Mac rated out a little bit better athlete than Purdy, which surprised me. They both run about a 4.8, but Mac had a 7.19 relative athletic score. Purdy had a 4.59. They weren't too far apart. They're both okay athletes with maybe a little – I think Purdy is a little more elusive when it comes to running the ball. But they're both decent size with pretty good arms. Neither one have an outstanding trait, but both of them are pretty good. And in this case, I think you stick with the guy you paid the big contract to, and you're going to get, high end QB2, low end QB1 performances out of them for fantasy. They're both, whichever one is starting is a viable quarterback in a super flex league.
Meanwhile, for the Rams, they went to overtime. They were well within field goal range that could have tied it. Instead, they went for it on fourth down. I didn't question going for it, but a very dynamic offense in the Rams. They called a really flaccid dive into the middle of the line, came up short, and essentially ended the game. Sean McVay has, in the days since, taken the fall for that call, saying he made a bad call. What did you think of the call when it happened?
I don't think it was a bad call. Would I like maybe something that provides your quarterback with a few more options, a quarterback that threw for 389 yards and 3 touchdowns in the game? Probably. But the reality of the situations, Williams is RB8 on the year. He's converted 61% of his third and fourth down attempts. 3 yard or third. Excuse me. Let me rephrase. He's converted 61% of third and fourth downs that were 3 yards or less. So there's a likelihood of success. And this season alone, he was 5 of 6 on those conversions. I mean, he's 5 of 7 now. But the odds certainly seemed like there was the opportunity to convert it. Would I have, like I said, you got Puka Nacua, you got Devontae Adams. Heck, it was 1 yard. You have Matthew Stafford, who's a pretty good-sized guy. But that was the call they made. The O-line just didn't get it done. And Williams couldn't find a crack. The defense made a play. And it's one of those situations where somebody's got to make a play on either side of the ball. And in this game, it was the 49ers defense.
Yeah, I for such a dynamic offense, I think that's where I wasn't that thrilled with the call. Like I said, I applauded them going for it. I thought that made sense. I just didn't like the choice, but those things happen and we'll see. I think the Rams could easily be 5-0. Kyron was going in for a touchdown that would have given them the lead in regulation and laid it down on the one. They couldn't block those field goal tries. Instead, they're probably one of the best 3-2 teams in the NFL. Going to the Sunday games, we had our first of 3 London games. Minnesota Vikings, who were in Ireland the week before, go over to London. They get the 21-17 victory over the Cleveland Browns. They are on a bye this week. When they come out, there is a chance J.J. McCarthy will be healthy. Will you think they go back to him? In the 2 games under McCarthy, they averaged just about 17 points a game. But if you take away the 21-point fourth quarter from week 1, they were averaging only 6 points a game. They didn't crack 150 yards pass offense in either game. Meanwhile, they're averaging 30 points a game with Carson Wentz in there in the last 3 games. They're averaging more than 350 yards total offense per game, and he has had more passing in weeks 4 and 5 alone than McCarthy did in 2 games combined. Do you think there's any case or any thought to them sticking with Carson Wentz?
I don't think so. I think they're going to say, look, we made this decision to go with the young quarterback. We spent a high draft pick on him. We brought in a veteran insurance policy to be just that. I get it. Wentz has been QB 11 in his 3 games, and McCarthy was QB 24 in his 2. But you're gonna go with the guy that you've invested the capital in until you're sure he's not the guy. O'Connell is the quarterback whisperer. They should be getting close to getting Aaron Jones back. Hawkinson looks like he's full go. Addison is back. So they have all of their their skill position, it will be back in line. Now, the real big deal is going to be, is their O-line going to be able to get healthy and get everybody back there, because they're down significantly there. And McCarthy's mobility may work in favor of that if he's able to come back. Honestly, I think if they stayed with Wentz, he would probably give them the better statistical season. I don't know if it would translate into more wins or not.
Yeah, I don't think that they'll stick with him. I would, though, because I think McCarthy is dog crap. Meanwhile, we saw another rookie get the start on Sunday, and that was Dillon Gabriel. 19 of 33, 190 yards, not blowing you away, but pretty good. 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, only 5 yards on 2 carries. But with Quinshon Judkins running well and a little bit of stability, I thought Cleveland looked better. I thought they had a chance to win. How did you feel about Gabriel?
I thought they were going to win. I thought Gabriel played pretty well. He missed some throws high, especially in the end zone. There were about 3 throws that sailed over people's heads. I don't think the game was too big for him. You know, he played reasonably well. He was mobile in the pocket. He didn't try to run a lot. And he kind of, the touchdown pass to Njoku was between 3 defenders, and it was a bullet drilled in there. And that's what we're looking to see, between the way he played. And I think they feel okay about Shedeur as the backup. And I think the Flacco trade telegraphs that Watson is getting close to returning. Regardless of what you feel about the off-field stuff, I think if Watson comes back, he's going to be the starter. They're not, they're going to say we're going to see if we need to get rid of this guy because we wasted our money, or can he get back to some form of reasonably good play. But in the interim, I'm okay with Dillon Gabriel. He did what he needed to do. He just got to get a couple of those throws down. He was a super flex quarterback last week, QB 19.
Yep. In regular window Sunday games, the Broncos went to Philadelphia and got the 21-17 victory over the Eagles. Much to my surprise, especially after going down 17-3, 18-point fourth quarter, salting it away before they go to London. Now 5 weeks in, Evan Ingram getting a little healthier, saw 6 targets on Sunday, caught 4 of them for 33 yards, including the go-ahead touchdown. Do you think he could potentially be a buy low candidate? A lot of people were hyped for him preseason. He looked like a non-factor for 3 weeks, getting a little more involved now. Would you come back around on him?
I think, how low? He's in that massive, might be a tight end 1 this week tier. He had 6 targets, 4 catches, only 31 yards, but he did catch the touchdown. If he didn't catch the touchdown, it was a 7.3 point week in a regular super flex league. And so I don't think we're going to get a lot of elite performances out of him. They threw the ball 39 times, which I think is a little more than they'd like to throw the ball. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But J.K. Dobbins had a serviceable day with 4.0 yards per carry and a touchdown. R.J. Harvey struggled a little bit. I'd like to see Harvey be more consistent. Last week, he looked good. This week, he just didn't get a whole lot going. Caught a few passes, but I think with Nix likes having, he's got the deep threats with Mims and Franklin. He's got the big intermediate guy with Sutton. And then I think Ingram adds a little short area opportunity to the mix. If we can keep them from throwing the ball to guys like Trent Sherfield and Adam Troutman instead of Ingram, it would be a lot better. That'd be great.
I actually like Sherfield. I thought he was good in the preseason. 13 targets for Ingram in the last 2 weeks. I do think he is a quarterback too. To your pass volume, here, Bo Nix has 5 games, 40 pass attempts, 30 pass attempts, 25, 42, and 39. So I do think that they are going to be, 39 to 40 might be a touch high, but I do think the 30 to 35 range is going to be probably pretty consistent. For the Eagles, Saquon Barkley catches a big touchdown, which helps. He's been steadily catching balls, which has helped him a little bit, but he was the offensive player of the year last year and was just killing people on the ground. This year, only 83 carries through 5 games, only 267 yards. What's going on with their ground game?
Yeah, he only had 6 carries in this game. They go back and forth between their reluctance to run the ball and their reluctance to pass the ball. Luckily, Barkley's a running back, and so he's not quite the diva that A.J. Brown is, so you probably won't hear a whole heck of a lot from him about it. The big issue, I think, is their offensive line. They're having some struggles there. They've had to replace a couple guys that, who was a Becton left. Juergens is in his second year replacing Kelsey, and so far has seemed okay, but he's certainly not the center Kelsey was. The yards before contact for Barkley are down from 3.8 yards last year to just 2 yards per rush this year. So he's getting hit sooner when he gets the ball. So he doesn't have that time to read the defense and make some plays. He's RB9 on the year, and I think it's a combination of the offensive line not being playing as well, and coming off 502 touches last year. I mean, that was just a massive volume. But he's had 17.4 or more fantasy points in 4 of his 5 games because he's been able to be active in the passing game and convert some touchdowns.
Next up, the Raiders went to Indianapolis. Wasn't much of a game. The Colts won 40-6. Dennis, another terrible game for Geno Smith. Now leads the league with 9 interceptions through 5 weeks. Pete Carroll admitted that he considered inserting Kenny Pickett during this Week 5 blowout. Do you think the leash is getting short on Geno Smith?
Yeah, I think Pete Carroll is or Chip Kelly's there hollering heel right now. Geno's had 3 games under 13 points for fantasy. That's not great, Bob. You bring in an experienced vet like Pickett, who hasn't been a superstar over the course of his career. In 25 games, he only has a 15-14 TD to interception ratio. But give him someone like Ashton Genty and, Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker, Brock Bowers. They lost Colton Miller for a couple weeks. That's not going to be great. But I think, Pickett's plenty mobile. The way Geno's playing, he's got 9 interceptions on the year, made some questionable decisions. I think if he struggles this next week, I think we will see them make the move to Pickett.
Meanwhile, Daniel Jones seems to have rebooted his career. 5 games, 1,290 passing yards, completing 71% of his passes, 6 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, also has 3 rushing touchdowns. Could he be a long-term answer for the Colts?
He's 28, 29 years old. He's not
too old.
And I'll keep talking in case it was. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, he's not too old. He, I think this is sixth season. Well, looks like Dennis may have frozen up there for a minute. I like what for me, I like what we've seen from Daniel Jones. I know he's on kind of a 1-year contract. I would not be surprised if they re-signed him just because, seems like what he's providing has been pretty solid. 9 touchdowns to only 2 turnovers. Team's 4-1. They look like a team that could definitely be a factor there. for for the long term. So, you back in there?
I hope so. You know, it's been storming here all day, but yeah, I like Jones. I think he's playing great, and I think he's, stable. I think we expect he's going to have a meltdown at some point, but that, as long as it doesn't last 4 or 5 games, everybody has a bad game. They've got Ashton Genty that can help bail them out if they need to go run heavy. And because they have, or not Ashton Genty, Jonathan Taylor, and because they have Anthony Richardson that can continue to develop, if you've got Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson in the backup, you throw some veteran on your practice squad, and then there's no pressing need to draft a quarterback now. You let's take Jones for about 3 years, 2 to 3 years, and see, can he stay consistent enough? And maybe Richardson develops and he can be a successor. Maybe he doesn't develop and you do draft somebody down the road. But the team is built around, Pittman and Warren and Josh Downs, Alec Pierce, Jonathan Taylor. So as long as they can keep the O-line intact, when Jones gets a ton of pressure, that's when a lot of his mistakes happen.
Next up, the Giants went to New Orleans. Saints getting the huge 26-14 victory. Dennis, first game with no Malik Neighbors, and your boy Theo Johnson, 7 targets, tied for the team lead with Wan'Dale Robinson, Cam Scatterbo, caught 6 of them for 33 yards and 2 touchdowns. Are you starting to be a Johnson believer?
Yeah, I mean, he was tight end 3 this week. He's an athletic tight end. He's a good 2-way tight end, so he's going to be on the field. He finished strong last year before he got injured. And so far this year, or let's see, last year, I had caught 17 out of 27 targets for 216 yards in a touchdown and 1 touchdown in the last 5 games he played. He's as good of a young tight end dart throw that you're going to find. And if he can get that pun, dart throw, if you,
I guess dart doesn't throw to the other team.
Yeah. So, if Jackson Dart can mature as a quarterback at the quarterback position, Malik Neighbors comes back next year from the knee injury. And if Scatterbo can execute the hashtag 2 to 3 year window and doesn't break himself running into people, between him and Tracy, and they got some other pieces at receiver with Wan'Dale, with Slayton, with Jalen Hyatt. And I like where it's going. And Theo Johnson is turning into a consistent player for fantasy and for real football.
Meanwhile, for the Saints, good first win for them. I want to talk about Tyler Shook a little bit. Going in, he was the highest drafted Saints quarterback since Archie Manning. We thought he was probably one of the surest locks to see year 1 playing time for the Saints. Not only did he lose the job to Spencer Rattler, they activated Taysom Hill, and Taysom Hill was installed as quarterback 2, pushing Shook to be the emergency 3rd quarterback on Sunday. This feels like a grim sign for Tyler Shook, does it not?
I don't think so. I think with Taysom Hill, he's 36 years old. And he does a lot of other things. So if you can put Taysom Hill as your QB2 and Shook is your emergency guy, and then you can play, you have somebody else that you can have active, whether it's a lineman, a defensive player, a skill position player. You can give yourself additional depth because you have Hill to be your QB2. Hill ran the ball 6 times. He threw 1 pass for 19 yards, but it was Spencer Rattler pretty much doing the damage at quarterback. 21 for 31, 225. You'd like to see a little more scoring production from the quarterback position, but Shaheed had 114 yards and a touchdown. Olave caught 7 passes for 59 yards. Kamara had 4. It was really Juwan Johnson that kind of was the forgotten man this
week. Yeah, I think it's a bad sign because the thing about making him in the emergency quarterback, if Rattler was to go down, they would play Taysom Hill at quarterback, because if you go to your emergency quarterback, you knock out the 2 ahead of them.
Yeah.
So I think that's somewhat of a commentary about how Kellen Moore feels like the offense would go with Tyler Shough, which would make sense because we did not see anything encouraging in necessarily in preseason. So who would have thought Tyler Shough might be one of the few rookie quarterbacks that doesn't play in 2025? We've already seen Gabriel. We've already who else? I feel like we've already seen Dart come in. So it's just crazy. It shows you those rookie drafts, you just never know. The Dallas Cowboys went to New York and played the Jets, got a 37-21 victory. No CeeDee Lamb again this week. They also didn't have Kevontae Turpin, but Ryan Flournoy, 6 catches for 114 yards. Yeah, their biggest depth piece. Totally knocked Jalen Tolbert off of the board. Tolbert, who I thought was a great start, only saw a single target and no receptions in this game. So do you like what you saw from Flournoy, and do you think there could be something there?
There might be something there, just because it's got to be somebody stepping up. If I remember correctly, let me look at the snap count here real quick. So Tolbert was second on the team in snaps. So he was out there and he was playing. He played 77% of the snaps. Flournoy only played 57%. So to me, it's as much a function of the Jets defense saying, hey, we're going to guard Pickens and we're going to guard Tolbert. And if you think you can beat us and we're going to guard Ferguson, we're going to try to stop Javonte Williams. And if you think you can beat us with this guy we've never heard of, go for it. And Dak said, I think I can do that. And so that's what he did.
You might be giving the Jets more credit for who they were guarding than they deserve, because they didn't look like they were guarding Williams, Ferguson, or Pickens either.
Yeah, no, their defense isn't very good. Their defense is struggling. But, Tolbert is the one right now. He's kind of in that odd spot where he's the least productive of the guys, but he's playing the most snaps outside of Pickens. And, where was it? So Turpin's wide receiver 60. Brooks was out. Flournoy, based on this great week, is wide receiver 76, and Tolbert's only wide receiver 86. Outside of Pickens, CeeDee Lamb is still the highest ranked wide receiver for fantasy at wide receiver 54. But, Flournoy, he's got good size. He was a small college guy, and sometimes they take a little while to develop in the NFL. So the opportunity is there for him to carve out a role now. They need somebody to take that wide receiver 3 role and be the guy. Is it going to be Flournoy? Is it going to be Tolbert? Is it going to be Turpin? Is it going to be Jalen Brooks? Right now, I think Brooks. Right now, I think they're all gambles. When CeeDee Lamb comes back, it's going to be Pickens, Lamb, and Ferguson anyways. So,
and it could be Lamb back as early as this week, so something to watch for. Meanwhile, the Jets, the only winless team in the NFL, I would not have predicted that preseason. 0-5. They also have a dubious mark of being the first team to begin the first 5 games of the season and not have a single defensive takeaway, which ain't great, Bob. They are a penalty magnet. Their defense can't stop anyone, and their offense, as we've noted a couple weeks, is wildly inconsistent. We both like Aaron Glenn, but this feels like the kind of coaching job that could have you a 1-and-out season. How are you feeling about the Jets?
I don't think we're going to see a 1 and out. He's a longtime Jets player, and I think he's got to, he's trying to build a culture. It's not off to a great start. But the guys you want to score fantasy points are scoring fantasy points. It was tough because Dallas just was able to put up so many points on them that Fields ended up throwing the ball 46 times. He completed 32 for 283 yards and 2 touchdowns, but they just didn't get in the end zone. The Jets had almost a 10-minute time of possession advantage and ran 14 more offensive plays. But we're sitting here with Breece Hall at running back 18, Garrett Wilson at wide receiver 5. Fields is QB 13 total points, but his 27.5 fantasy points per game in his 3 full games he's played would make him QB 1. So, and then we had the Mason Taylor breakout this week.
I think what's surprising to me is their defense, because they had a pretty good defense the last couple of years, and they still have some good players. And that is what Glenn kind of is known for. And those Detroit defenses, while they sometimes allowed yards and points, were always opportunistic with turnovers. And so that's kind of gives me pause. They're going to London this week, which won't help. And they're playing the Broncos, which based on what we've seen may not help them either. It could be a long road for the Jets. Yeah, fortunately.
And I without looking, I don't know what the defensive scheme was last year and how Aaron Glenn's defense differs. Are they a team in transition, from defensive style, and so they have to have some player turnover to get the right type of players in there? I haven't looked at that at all, so I'm not sure.
Meanwhile, Mike McDaniel saw what was happening in New York and said, "Hold my beer." They jumped out to a pretty good lead in Carolina and managed to blow it. The Panthers winning 27-24. I want to talk about Devon Achane. We're happy for him in fantasy, but that's largely because he's seen 32 targets, caught 25 for 173 and 3 touchdowns. Their run game is not great. Only 60 carries in 5 games, 262 yards and just 1 touchdown. Is he pretty much a passing threat now?
I think by and large, any of their backs are. They're a quick throw kind of offense. That was, Tua's a good short to intermediate passer. And they want to execute that type of stuff. Now they've got Waller back, who's playing very well. With Hill out, there isn't that same type of pressure from Hill and Waddle about who should get the ball. Now it's Jalen Waddle, it's Devon Achane at running back, and it's Darren Waller at tight end. And so now the funnel
Although they seem to forget that Waller played for them in the second half.
Well, because Waddle was open, I guess.
They didn't throw it that much, to be honest.
No, they threw it 36 times. They've got challenges, and I don't think we expected them to be great this year. I'll be honest, where are they sitting? 1-4.
Yeah.
I think the upside, if the optimistic thing, they would have been 2-3. So, let's.
Their one victory was against the Jets, so yeah, not great. For Carolina, we've talked about how inefficient Chuba Hubbard has been to start the season. He was out this week. Rico Dowdle came in. We both liked him last year in Dallas. 23 carries, 206 yards, caught 3 passes on 4 targets. Do you think he is playing himself into more touches even when Hubbard is back?
Yeah, based on Hubbard's efficiency, certainly. Through 5 games, when you total it all up, Rico's played 42% of the snaps and Chuba 64. Now, granted, the bulk of Rico snaps came this week, but he was involved each game. He got a little bit of run, had some opportunity. He just had a phenomenal game this week against a defense that could be had. I think the opportunity exists for them to have a nice two-headed backfield. The backs in and of themselves are very similar. It isn't like a Derrick Henry, Justice Hill complementary back style or Devon Achane, Ollie Gordon complementary back style. It's like Tennessee with Tyjae Spears and Tony Pollard. It's kind of the same types of back. And so they don't have whichever one is in, they can keep running the same offense, whether they want to run it, whether they want to throw it, whatever. They trust both of these backs. This is why they brought Rico Dowdle in. They wanted something better behind Chuba Hubbard. And when Chuba got injured, this gave Dowdle the chance to kind of show what he's made of, show why they signed him. And I think it's going to be a little bit frustrating for fantasy because it could turn into one of those, each guy gets 12 touches and, you're hoping the guy you started gets the touchdown.
The Houston Texans went to Baltimore and got the 44-10 win over the Ravens. Dennis, it's been a slow start for CJ Stroud. This year was a slow kind of year last year, but 23 of 27, 244 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Was this the kind of game you wanted to see from Stroud? Oh, there you are back.
Still can't hear you.
Obviously, we saw CJ Stroud off to kind of a rough start, to the season, but I was encouraged seeing them go down the field. Obviously, playing Baltimore Ravens, who would have thought when the season began would be the way to have a get-right game for your offense, but here we are. Meanwhile, the Ravens now slumped to 1-4, looking pretty bad. Dennis, is it possible the Ravens are cooked?
I think the Ravens are cooked. Their defense is just really bad. They traded away Owe today for a safety. So it looks like Kyle Hamilton is going to be out. Who was it? Alohi Gilman is who they went and got. So
yeah, it did not seem like the kind of trade you would make if you thought your team was going to be good.
Yeah, and so if Hamilton is out, he's one of the best players on their defense. Roquan Smith has been struggling with injuries this year. The offense can't seem to get anything going consistently. There's talk that this week, maybe the week we see some Snoop Huntley because Cooper Rush is getting it done the way he is. Derrick Henry, Henry, he scored 29.2 points in week 1, and he scored 30.1 points weeks 2 through 5.
Yeah, it's getting grim early, and I was just looking it up. They're at the Rams this week, which ain't great. Then they have a bye week. Maybe they get Lamar back after that. They're home against the Bears. That's no give me. But then on the road at the Dolphins, at the Vikings, at the Browns, you're not excited about 3 road games in a row, including a Thursday night game to kick that off. But that does feel like a little more winnable stretch than home against the Jets, Bengals, and Steelers. So it looks grim, but I'm not totally counting them out yet because you look at that schedule mid-season. If you were going to tell me a team was going to start 1-5 and still have a chance at the playoffs, you would want to see a schedule that included the Bears, the Dolphins, the Vikings, the Browns, the Jets, the Bengals twice, and the Steelers in the middle of the season. 1 or 2 of the, Steelers, Packers, Steelers on there twice, Packers, probably their toughest games. Less division games can be tough, but the way Cincinnati and Cleveland are playing, although Cleveland may be better, it really just depends, I guess, on how they put it together. I don't think they're completely out of it, but it is surprising the way they've played this year.
Now, what they have going for them is a weak division, and they can get hot in the middle to the end and make a little run at it as much as anybody else could. Well, I guess maybe as much as the Steelers can, who are currently leading the division. So that's really what they have to overcome. I don't think we're going to see a wild card out of this division. They have to win.
Steelers didn't even play this week, and they managed to increase their division lead. That's how bad that division is. One of the wildest games, not only of the week, but of the season so far, was Tennessee at Arizona. The Cardinals had a 21-6 victory. Looked like they were about to cruise in for a touchdown to make it 28-6. And then a funny thing happened. Amari DiMercato becomes the latest to let go of the ball before crossing the goal line. Cam Ward managed to throw an interception for an offensive touchdown. And all of a sudden, the Titans winning 22-21. It was not a pretty game for the Titans, but a win is a win. And how big was it for Cam Ward and the Titans to get that first win?
Well, to quote LeBron James in the DraftKings commercial, it's everything.
Can I get Shaq on here?
It's everything. The Lockett fumble recovery after the interception was just such a fluke. But when you're struggling, you need some breaks to go your way. You know, for them to be able to then go on an 11-play, 71-yard drive to get the field goal was definitely a building block. You have to lay a foundation. And I think with Cam Ward, you know, that was kind of maybe one of the things he needed. He did throw for 265 yards. He finally figured out who Calvin Ridley is.
I was going to say that was the encouraging thing. Ridley, you know, 5 for 131. Gunnar Helm, I thought looked good. Chigakonkwo got involved. It was nice to see them actually have a passing game.
I mean, Ward went 5 of 6 on that last drive to get into field goal range. They had 6 players with 4 or more targets, led by Ridley's 10. So there are some positive signs. You know, Tony Pollard, 14 for 67 and a touchdown. That was 4.8 yards a carry. Spears was 4 for 14, not much, but you know, you need to, when you're sitting where the Titans were, which was, what was that, 0-4? You need whatever thing you can grasp on to build, and this was it. This was, we got a break with the fumble. We turned something in with that last drive. Now they have to just continue to keep building. Do I think they're going to go on an 8-game win streak? That's not what I think at all. Would it, you know, Amari DiMercato's screwball, drop the ball before he crossed the goal line, really put them in a bad spot. Forgetting who Marvin Harrison was in the second half of the game. You know, Gannon came out and was like, that was on.
There's some discussion that Kyler Murray may have gotten a concussion. They didn't realize, because he took I didn't see the game, but he took a shotgun snap to the face, and they said he did not look right after that. Let's move to Cardinals for a minute. That backfield, DiMercato, I thought looked almost better than Troy Benson the week before. So I figured, you know, with Benson gone, they elevated Michael Carter from the practice squad. Surely DiMercato is going to be a part of it. He was like the missing man until that one long play, which led to the coach having such a visceral reaction to him that the coach got a gigantic fine today for his demeanor toward the player. So that does not bode well for his future. Is this kind of like Michael Carter's backfield with maybe Bam Knight being the second best option now?
I think DiMercato, you know, it was a fundamental error, and you have to play fundamentally sound football. You know, my son is in the 9th grade, and he's 2 years into learning how to play the sport. And, you know, he comes from this video game age where, you know, it's one-handed catches and all of this. And so he played the JV game last week. I'm going on a tangent. played the JV game, and then he went back and watched the freshman game. Well, we had a backup quarterback in for the freshman game because our freshman quarterback played up. And this backup quarterback Cole said he threw a beautiful ball into the end zone, receiver, right over the defender, right into the receiver's hands, except the receiver decided to catch it with one hand. So it ended up being a drop. He wanted a highlight, whether it was he wasn't, his arm wasn't being held or anything. It was just, it's that video game era, and sometimes it gets away from us. DeMarcado, he was starting to celebrate early. He's grab that ball when you're crossing that end line, like it's a cake. Don't let it go. Don't drop it, whatever it is. But I don't know. I think that DeMarcado he's just a better player than Bam Knight. And I think that will keep him in his role. Like Michael Carter was not efficient, but he Cameron Artis-Payne his way into, 23 opportunities for 73 yards. If it wasn't for the touchdown, his day would have been highly disappointing.
I just think Arizona's a train wreck still. And
oh yeah,
I'm glad Gannon has enough fight to scream at his players, but they're terrible. Perhaps the game of the weekend was Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Seattle Seahawks, a back and forth seesaw battle with the guy that, if I was voting after 5 weeks would be my NFL MVP in Baker Mayfield. But 38-35, Tampa Bay gets the win over Seattle. I want to talk about Emeka Egbuka. Another huge day for him, 7 for 163 and a touchdown. Wide receiver for this fantasy season has been kind of a wasteland between injuries and guys we like stuck in untenable quarterback situations. But Egbuka averaging 20.5 points per game, wide receiver 3 on the season. Have you been impressed with what you've seen? Oh, maybe dropped out.
I'm back, I think. Can you hear me?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. And I think Emeka Egbuka, he went in and he decided, I'm just going to play my game. I'm going to take care of my business. And I think where we sit right now is that it doesn't matter that Chris Godwin is healthy. It's not going to matter when Mike Evans comes back. I think he has become the wide receiver 1 in Tampa. He's got chemistry with Baker. 7 for 163 and a touchdown. I mean, he's on fire. With Godwin and Evans there, is there going to be a week where, it isn't quite as lofty? Sure. But he's going to be the guy that you want in that offense on a week-to-week basis.
Meanwhile, for Seattle, we largely regarded A.J. Barner as the impediment to Elijah Arroyo getting volume, but he seems to be doing well for Seattle. Was actually tight end 1 for the week after Sunday's games. I don't know if Kelsey's performance nixed that, but how do you feel about Barner?
I think he's turned into a great option. He's tight end 11 on the year. He almost matched his season target total this week, and he seems to have separated himself from Elijah Arroyo. I don't think you can count on 2 touchdowns every week. I think that, but catching 4, 5, 6 passes for 50, 60, 70 yards every week, I think that the chemistry with Darnold is good. And if the running game is going to be, average, they're doing okay, but if Sam Darnold's going to put up 340 yards and 4 touchdowns, A.J. Barner's going to continue to eat.
Meanwhile, Detroit went to Cincinnati, got the 37-24 win. It wasn't even really that close. Detroit was slamming them, and Cincinnati put up some garbage points, which good for people that are rostering Chase and Higgins. But I want to talk, Detroit, the offense pretty much goes as you expect, but there was a guy that was of interest ever since he's been drafted, and that's Isaac Tesla. We've seen a couple flashes. He caught a touchdown pass, only 1 reception in this game, but caught a touchdown pass in this game. 3 receptions this year, 2 touchdowns. Is he guy you might think about stashing?
If I'm in Dynasty, yeah. And, unfortunately, when it comes to redraft, I just don't think the volume is going to be there. When we go through these heavy bye weeks and Bye-Mageddon and, the week with 6 byes, do we have one of those this year? Or is it only 4?
Yeah, no, we do. This week there's only 2 teams on a bye, but there is a week with 6. I'll tell you which week it is here in a minute.
He's going to be one of those plug and pray guys where you're going to hope if I stick him in my lineup, can he get me 2 catches for 25 yards and a touchdown just so I don't get a 0?
Yeah, and I kind of like what we've seen. Week 8 is a week with 6 teams on a bye: Jaguars, Raiders, Lions, Rams, Seahawks, Cardinals. So that will be pretty.
There's a monkey wrench in that plan. Yeah, part of the challenge too.
He's part of my
part of the issue though is that like this week the Lions only threw the ball 24 times, and they ran it 33. It's not counting Goff's 2 scrambles. So if that just makes it hard for, a guy like Jameson Williams or Isaac Tesla to be able to be productive on a regular basis. It's Amon-Ra and it's Laporta. And then either one of those guys, whether it's Tesla or Williams, you're hoping for a big play, that ends in a touchdown or ends in a long yardage play, I guess, when it comes to Williams. So they're good players. Tesla seems to be a good, he's got some ability. I'd like to see where it goes over the next couple of years.
Meanwhile, for the Bengals, another rough game for Chase Brown. He does catch 7 passes, only 21 yards. That helped with PPR. But 65 carries, 160 yards, and a touchdown, averaging 2.5 yards per carry through 5 games. Hasn't had a game with more than 47 yards rushing this season. How are you feeling about Chase Brown?
Depressed. I mean,
he needs an offensive line.
It's like he's suffering from the same thing the quarterbacks are suffering from, It's except on when it comes to the run game, there's no holes, and when it comes to the pass game, it's all holes. He's still a good running back. This is. I don't think in redraft I'm probably not looking to buy him, but I might take a flyer or 2 in a dynasty league if I can pick him up on the super cheap, just because he's not being productive this year, and I've got to believe that they invest after 2 injuries to Joe Burrow because of offensive line issues in his career. I've got to believe that that this is the year they invest heavily in the O-line. I'm probably delusional, but
yeah, we'll see. The last of the late window games, Washington Commanders battled the Los Angeles Chargers, got a 27-10 road victory. How much did the Commanders miss Jayden Daniels?
Well, in my gut, I want to say a lot because it's Jayden Daniels. But the reality is
they just play different with him out there too, man.
They were 1-1 and averaged 34 points a game with Mariota, and they averaged 22 points a game with Jayden Daniels. So I'm not sure what's going on. I mean, that being said, I want Daniels 10 out of 10. He's the much better quarterback. Getting Terry McLaurin back is obviously going to help. Bill Merritt, Krosky Merritt going off last week was definitely a big deal. Let's see, now watch Merritt get 4 carries next week. But Daniels is a very, very, very good quarterback. He's not in danger of losing his job. Luke McCaffrey is making plays. Zach Ertz is there. Deebo Samuel is having a phenomenal season. He was caught 8 passes for 96 yards and a touchdown. Nobody else had more than 2 targets this last week. It's crazy to think that, well, they beat the Chargers. So, they only threw the ball 26 times, but they have 55 plays. They had almost a 10-minute time of possession disadvantage to the Chargers. Just their defense played well.
Meanwhile, speaking of the Chargers, just a horrible situation on their line. They're missing a lot of pieces. Probably led to Hampton getting injured. He's now on IR. Justin Herbert hasn't looked good. They feel like they're coming apart. Could it just be a case of too many injuries up front for them?
Yeah, at some point that takes its toll. Now we're going to be looking at a Hassan Haskins, Kamani Vidal, Naheem Hines backfield, and that's not going to be good for anybody's fantasy teams. Now, on the plus side, maybe that means that Herbert has to start using his mobility some, and Quentin Johnston's wide receiver 8, Keenan Allen is wide receiver 14. And heck, they even remembered who Ladd McConkey was this week, and he scored a touchdown on 7 targets with 5 catches. So this was Ladd McConkey's highest scoring game of the week or of the season. And granted, Washington is susceptible to slot play, so it kind of played into what McConkey does. But they're going to, if Hampton is out, I feel like they're going to pass the ball more. They're not going to have a choice. And while it's going to kind of suck because they're down some offensive linemen, they're going to have to figure it out.
In Sunday Night Football, the New England Patriots went to Buffalo and got the 23-20 victory. Is this kind of the signature win for this young Patriots team?
In the Vrabel era, it certainly is. Stephon Diggs he's wide receiver 20 on the season, but he bought into the revenge game narrative, and he went at the Bills, 10 catches for 146 yards. But his playing time still was only at 50% of the snaps. Now, that was his highest of the season, and he did have a 40% target share in this game. So you love to see that. I think Diggs' playing time will continue to trend up. Kayshon Boutte's he's getting some work. He's the number 2 receiver there. I'd like to see him be in the 7, 6, 7, 8 target range. But May only threw the ball 30 times. It was a good game. It was exciting, came down to the end. The running game is a train wreck, nightmare. With
Antonio Gibson now out for the year, so I'm hoping that leads them to remember that TreVeyon Henderson is on their damn team.
Yeah, I mean, it was 6 carries, 7 carries for the 3 backs this week. Hopefully, we're praying for the Rico Dowdle, Chuba Hubbard split now.
I just want to know, did TreVeyon Henderson make a pass at Mike Vrabel's sister or daughter or something? Because even after Ramondre fumbles in crucial situations, it's like, we'll throw Gibson out for a couple. Oh, Gibson got hurt. Well, we better go back to Ramondre. We certainly don't have any other options. Like, holy buckets. Speaking of sad running back situations, you and I and our friend Matt have always been fans of Ray Davis. I thought he ran really well for Buffalo last year. We thought he might have some flex appeal in this offense, but so far this season, kind of the forgotten man. Only 13 carries for 30 yards. They on Sunday night actually were running with Ty Johnson ahead of him. What does this mean to you for Dynasty?
You hold him. I mean, it's not like you can sell him. Maybe you can get him, move him as a throw-in for somebody that's got a glimmer of hope. I mean, snap counts by week, starting with week 1, 12%, 27%, 7%, 8%, 9%. I guess the best thing you can say is, hey, the last 3 weeks are trending in the right direction. But touches, 2 week 1, 9 week 2, 1, 2 this week. The only playable running backs in Buffalo are James Cook and Josh Allen.
Yeah. Monday Night Football, a little bit of a surprise. The Chiefs went to Jacksonville. They actually built something of a lead. I think it was 14-0 at one point. Ended up losing 31-28. Speaking of running backs, what are we doing with Isaiah Pacheco? We thought maybe last year it was due to the injury, but he's back. He's healthy. He's still only 39 carries in 5 games, only 163 yards, no touchdowns. He's not a huge receiving threat, and it feels like they like Kareem Hunt more. Patrick Mahomes has actually been their leading rusher a couple of times. Pacheco, a 7th-round pick, contract year. I feel like it's time to move him if you have him, if you can move him for anything.
Yeah, he's going the way of James Robinson, and he's averaging 7.2 fantasy points per game. He is playing the most snaps so far through 5 games, 52% to 40% for Hunt. He had the same number of carries as Hunt this week. Hunt had, he actually had 3 targets to Hunt's 1, but Hunt is just outperforming him, and they trust Hunt at the goal line. He's getting the touchdowns. It's tough. 12 of Brashard Smith's 17 opportunities have come in the last 2 games, and it seems like Smith has the one thing Pacheco and Hunt don't, which is explosiveness. And I think we're going to see him cut more into both guys' touches. We got one more week and Rashee Rice is back. The Chiefs are only running the ball 42% of the time right now. I wouldn't be surprised if it's down to 35% by the end of the season when you got Worthy, Rice, Brown, Travis Kelce. I think they're going to be chucking the ball all over the field.
Meanwhile, the Jaguars moved to 4-1. It's been an up and down battle with Trevor Lawrence. I don't think he's been blowing anyone away, only completing about 60% of his passes, 1,066 yards, 6 TDs, 5 interceptions. Finding a way, though, including one of the most bizarre rushing touchdowns, accounted for 3 touchdowns last night in the win. How are you feeling about Trevor Lawrence?
I'm optimistic, but he's QB 18 and QB 23 in points per game, so he's a low end QB 2 for fantasy. He did complete 70% of his passes this week, which was his highest of the season. He made some clutch plays last night, most notably the drop-in throw to Brian Thomas, the fall down, get up, score a touchdown. But he also had some questionable decisions and some questionable throws and some questionable optics on the sideline. He made a lot of plays with his legs. He carried the ball 10 times, scored the 2 rushing touchdowns. So the 25 pass attempts were his fewest of the season by 6. Coming into the game, 31 was his lowest pass attempt game. And it was interesting that in a game where Etienne and Tootin only combined for 16 carries, they only threw the ball 25 times. Let's see, what was the time of possession? So they had a slight disadvantage, about 4 minutes disadvantage in time of possession, and about 9 fewer plays than Kansas City. They just got the ball at the end when they needed it. And I'll be honest, I'm like everybody else that was watching that game. And when Kansas City got the ball with 23 seconds, I was like, oh, that's too much time for them. Yeah.
Some of the Kansas City mystique is just, I guess, slowly ebbing away.
It is rubbed off.
Well, that'll do it for us today. We will be back on Thursday previewing the week 6 games. Only 2 teams on a bye this week, the Houston Texans and the Minnesota Vikings. So a little bit easier for fantasy. Next week, only 2 teams on a bye. That'd be the Ravens and the Bills. If you had to pick only 2 teams, those are 2 rougher ones. But And then brace yourself as I gave the look ahead. Week 8 is the week when 6 teams are on a bye, so that ought to feel real nice. That's a nice Halloween present from the league. But Dennis, if people are looking for something to fill their time, what can they do?
Well, they can do better than I did with my picks this week, where I only went 5-9. I'm coming back down to earth. I mean, I'm 46-31-1 on the season, so I mean, I'm ahead of the game against the money line. But they can go to their favorite podcast platform, hit that search bar, type in the Fantasy Football Roundtable podcast, give us a subscribe, give us a like.
I was 5-9 this week too. I think you and I must be spending a little too much time together. I don't know. But that'll do it for this week. We'll be back on Thursday with a look at the full slate. I hope you guys have a wonderful week.